turned around, smiling to see me. It was Cream. Just before unconsciousness, I grasped some of it. How months earlier he must have set in train the events that led up to this moment. How he had befriended the Morlands, for the uncle was only a family friend, and discreetly provided my name to a nearby practice. All of this I saw with a kind of passive awe, before losing my senses. Now, lying here in the darkness, I felt terror. Cream was an expert poisoner. Indeed, it was his preferred instrument of murder. If he had intended me to die, he could certainly have done it with his green cordial, which could only mean his plans were more extensive. Was he somewhere beside me now, in this black space? The prospect was so awful, I tried to gather my strength, forcing my head higher, opening my eyes as wide as I could. Still I could see nothing, only vague, insubstantial shapes. There was a low noise from somewhere outside, perhaps a wind. "Are you there?" The words came out as a whisper. My throat was parched, and I began to sense body pains, no doubt masked by the poison. It occurred to me he could have done anything, even severed a limb. I tried to move my legs. They seemed to function, but then a man fills his legs long after they are amputated, so I touched them quickly. Thank God they were whole, but my legs and arms were feeble. I noticed, too, that I was drenched in perspiration. "Are you there?" I tried to shout. There was nothing. Absolute silence. I knew I must try to move, though I felt so weak. Even the simplest movement was horrible. I forced myself up further, and for the first time I realized I was still wearing clothes, a shirt and undergarment, and the blankets on me were heavy. Shutting my mind to the stench of this bed, I forced myself into a sitting position. It was still dark, but there was a slight movement in the shadows before me, and I expected him to step forward. Again something moved, this time accompanied by a low sound. I decided it must be some kind of reflection, and when it came again, I was sure. The sound was wind. The shadows were the branches. That meant somewhere behind me was a window. Perhaps I could reach it. I summoned all my strength and pushed my left leg out from under the blankets. It found support below me, but I knew it would give way if I put any weight on it. I paused, not sure how to proceed, and suddenly had to endure a violent bout of shivering. This made me swing the other leg down, but even with both feet on the ground, it was obvious there was no way I could stand, and I sank quickly to a kneeling position, clutching the bedclothes. My head was facing the bed, so if I crawled to my right, I should come to the window that cast the reflection. I turned my body, registering the floor was stone and cold to the touch. If Cream were here, how he would be enjoying this humiliation. In London, I had felt such an overwhelming presence of the man. Now I could not sense him. I began to crawl, but it was painfully slow. As a distraction, I made myself think more about that last evening. My main dread was that Sally Morland and her children had been given the poison. I was sure my glass of cordial had been poured before I got there. Obviously, he wanted everything to be normal, so no harm could have come to the Morlands up to that point. This gave me hope, but I had also to face the plain truth, which was that Cream would think nothing of slaughtering them all. Here was the worst possibility for me, far worse than the fact he might be watching me now. There had been nothing improper in my friendship with Sally Morland, whose world was built around her 2 young children and her husband. But she was so full of transparent joy and mischievousness, and reminded me so much of my first love, that when I began to suspect Cream had returned to the capital, I made a private pledge, namely that if Sally Morland or her family came to...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.